Okay, so let's see here. Oh, there's one more, sorry. It reminds me of paprika or rich roll meal planner. How do you think this particular thing is different? Have you heard of either one of those products, Jeff?
Haven't, no.
Okay. We'll leave it up to the author to kind of answer those then. Who is the person that created this lovely solution sketch? That'd be Susanna, who is muted. Now, eventually he'll talk.
Unmuting, sorry.
Got it.
Multiple computers here. Yes, that was mine. Quick sketch. So I think that Jeff got it right on. I didn't probably get it quite all the way to all the kinds of things it can do in terms of how you would feel afterwards. So I really like those builds on the other ones. So I don't know that I have that much to add. I guess I didn't even finish my sentence on the end of that one. But yeah, automatically linking and updating your data to give you feedback. So I was imagining this being more automated and simplifying a process that I go to anyway to try, like my current whiteboard solution where I do the meal planning. But then when you do your meal plan, if it automatically generated your shopping list, and if you do this week after week, it would know what you have. Well, there's really, I don't have one, but they make smart fridges that know what's in there too, right? So your refrigerator already knows what's in it, or your pantry. So you have all these kind of smart home systems, thinking futuristically maybe. And then it would give you some choices. So it's not dictating what you eat, but it would give you your choices and would kind of would learn as it goes along based on your feedback, what you like and what you don't like, kind of Spotify wise. I don't know paprika or rich roll meal planners either, so I don't know how it's different, but it was integrating choice and simplicity. So simplifying the process for you so that you can just enjoy what you have. So it's not taking away the cooking or prep or doing it for you, but just taking away some of kind of the challenging parts around choosing, shopping, so that you can focus you on that. And then integrating with your other systems. So those are the reminders and the other app-based systems and feedback and tracking. So.
Got it.
That's the idea.
Thank you very much for putting that forward. Okay, so I'm going to move my focus down to the lower row. And Suzanne, since you left off with your sketch where you're going to be starting up this one, this is going to be for the mindful, hang on, I got too many windows in front of me.
I got to get there.
Yep, I'll summon everybody. So this is going to be for the mindful eating program. You may have to zoom in a little bit to kind of see the fine print here, but why don't you go ahead and give your impressions of what you're looking at and narrate it for us, please.
Okay, so this is the online onboarding for a mindful eating program. So it looks like it's an online program that you access either on a website or an app. And it might be integrated with your insurance plan or your prescription form, so with your healthcare system. So it's giving you a little bit inventory, having you kind of slow down. Why are you here? So you check one of these boxes, whether you want to be healthier, you want to reduce your impact on the environment, lose weight, look better, spend less on healthcare, less on food. Doctor made me, someone told me I had to do it. Then it reminds you that learning something new takes time. You need a certain number of minutes per day for how many months. What will you give up to make time for this program? So it's helping you prioritize this in your life. Then step 3, your first lesson is just 5 minutes, and it's the raisin activity. So having you complete this around your sensory experience, focusing in on the raisin. And so it looks like it's a daily repetition. It'll give you your next steps popping up there in terms of your next day, and reminding you of your motivation, giving you a plan for the next number of days. And it looks like it will give you different kinds of things like food stories, so that will give you information around your favorite food to remind you of where your food's coming from, give you tips on shopping, might give you a coach if you need it. So different kinds of the different aspects via an app. So you're signing up for this program to help give you a little bit of an inventory of the mindful eating program, and having it linked to either your doctor told you or your insurance kind of linkages get to increase the participation. Maybe an employer or something might have you do it, depending on what country you're in. So that's what I'm seeing.
Okay. We have a couple of comments coming in. I don't see any particular questions. How does everyone feel about the way that Susanna has explained this particular solution sketch? Is there anything else that you'd like to point out? Not the author of who did this, but everyone else that's been kind of listening in. Anything else you'd like to add comments to? No? Okay. Would the person who authored this particular solution sketch please speak up?
Me, Marguerite.
That was a very very gentle way of coming into the conversation. That works.
Yeah. The people on this who were on Team Marvel might have guessed, considering I avoided drawing anything.
No, that's not nice.
I'm not the
perfectly
best
fine.
at drawing.
You write perfectly fine. It's all legible. I don't know what they're talking about.
It was easy to understand.
Yes,
That's good.
And you did draw. You made check boxes and lists.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the capital letters in terms of a bold versus like the pen that you use to explain things, it was a nice touch.
Good. I'm glad it could be read. But yeah, that Susanna was right on. That was what I intended. I added this cheat note on the left because I didn't write it down, which is maybe the plan would be customized based on the person's motivation. But yeah, you covered it pretty perfectly, Susanna.
And the other note up there you put is that this is the online onboarding for a mindful eating program. It's interesting that you use the word onboarding, like they're stepping into the experience more so than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there would be so much more to a program, I felt like, so I was just kind of like, where do I start?
Okay.
And I thought it was important to I just focus on the setup. How would you get someone engaged in this?
So how do you feel this what you've created here, how does it track change?
I haven't thought through that too much, but honestly, I haven't thought about it, but I think you would need to track product. So that's a very good question, but I hadn't thought about it.
Does anyone on the call have an idea of how this particular solution sketch could track change?
I was just thinking the step 2 where it asks you to like, what are you going to give up to make time for this program? If the person enters that data, then in like a month or 2 or something, they could say like, hey, last month you gave up this in order to make time. Asking them about that, like, was it worth it? Yes or no? Or, do you miss that thing that you gave up? Yes or no? And then over time, you can track how their priorities change.
There's a quit smoking app that every day comes up and tells you like how much money you've saved and how long you've been doing it. So based on the things that you're tracking, it'll give you notifications or prompts and track it that way.
It's like a calendar integration. I love my calendar, like keeps me straight, keeps me sane. So like, I feel like there's a calendar integration potential here as well. Or maybe a to-do list app integration sort of thing.
Okay. So I think that was, and then there was another question over here, Margarita, was how do we get people to subscribe and to keep doing it?
Subscribe. I kind of wrote down in the second post-it, I think there would be some people who would opt into it. They would be looking for something like this and they would opt in. But I think a lot of people would need an incentive. That's why I mentioned like it's tied to your healthcare planner.
Okay.
But there might be more. There are probably better short-term incentives because obviously changing insurance plans is a long-term play.
And I think that's everything. Thank you very much for kind of going through that. I think you see the comments already about what people kind of notated here. Let's go ahead and move to the right. We're going to go to panel 7, where it says muddles of mindful nourishment. It's been quite a while since I've seen someone use the term muddles, but it's a welcome kind of surprise. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of center my view over here. Why don't you go ahead, Marguerite, and kind of go over this and basically narrate and say what you're seeing on the screen. You're seeing
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
So, all right. So there is a product, a physical product that uses this a table to engage users. And I need to zoom in. We've got a napkin, fork, knife, and placemat, and it looks like it's giving some guidance in mindfulness. It's a texture of on the knife. I think that's some instructions on how to, in sort of thinking about what you're doing and what you're touching. And then in the second page, there are mind, body, nourishment cards. And it's a card deck that you would play with while you're at the table, while I'm guessing while you're eating. And each card has a theme, maybe an image, and reflective or maybe exercises or proactive content where you, while you're at the table, you're practicing these mindful exercises.
So just let's kind of play here a little bit with you, Marguerite, and say, like, what would you expect to see on that card when you got to that point?
Well, the first thing I would guess is maybe something like the raisin exercise, or maybe just like just slowing down, chewing, like I don't know, chewing each bite a certain number of times and sort of concentrating on the flavor or something like that, or thinking about how your stomach feels if you're full or thirsty, thinking about how you're feeling while you're eating. That's what I would imagine.
Okay. Somebody's writing here, do they feel it's a dinner? Do you feel, Marguerite, do you think this is a dinner table game?
I think it seems like it might be while you're eating.
Okay.
So yeah, dinner, lunch, if you can.
Okay. And do you think it's a physical product smart table?
Smart table. That's the first thing I thought when I looked at the drawing. Like it's some sort of like a digital interface or mixed reality or something like that. But I think based on the napkin drawings, and I thought maybe it's their physical sort of eating tools that you actually need to eat.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for going over that. And who was the person that created this solution sketch?
Mine.
So how close did Marguerite get in terms of it, not only answering the questions, but explaining what the solution sketch was all about?
Yeah, I mean, pretty bang on actually. Thanks, Marguerite. I don't have much to add. I mean, in terms of it being like a game, I didn't think of it being like a full-on like board game that you would, I don't know, have rules and multiple players. Like it's not that type of a game. It's more just like a low-key game where, there's a card deck, which sounds very like formal, but really it's just like next to like the salt and pepper on the table, you might have like a box that has multiple cards in it that say, whether it be sort of short activities or reflective suggestions, or I don't know, maybe even like stories of farmers who produce, I don't know, food from other countries, like where does bananas come from, or rice, or I don't know, something like that. In terms of the content for the cards, I think you could go really broad there. So I didn't develop that really. And then, yeah, the smart table, I thought about like, what's the possibilities of technology, like, you know, like RFID or like accelerometer integrations to say like, you know, you pick up the fork, the accelerometer tracks that and knows that you're essentially taking a bite. But I also worry that bringing technology mindfulness out that. So then I just went like old-fashioned style, where on the napkin, maybe there's a thing that, you know, engages mindfulness, which I wrote there, which isn't very mindfully engaging. We need a content redesign on this idea, but you know, maybe the placemat or the fork or the knife have some inscriptions that just remind you of your intention. But if we could do that with technology well, I'd be all for that for sure.
Okay.
That's what my soldering gun is for right there.
There you go. That works.
Prototype.
Sorry, Natasha, if we could do what well with technology?
If we could integrate, like in terms of the question about a smart table, you know, like I imagined some things like an accelerometer on a fork would track each time you went to take a bite. So then theoretically, if you had a smart table, then, you know, it could guide you through that bite, for example. However, like, I don't know, I feel not super hopeful about the potential of technology being integrated well into that experience enough to not interrupt the mindfulness of it.
There you go.
But maybe it's like
smart forks exist. You know that?
Which
The
they
smart forks.
really,
Yeah, and they measure like how much food is on your fork and how much you ate and everything. It's Bluetooth connected to your phone.
wow. I totally didn't know there were smart forks. That's awesome. Nora, what were you gonna say?
no, I was gonna say like if there was a fork that, you know, went like dessert forks, you know, when you're like, we're only gonna have a bite, you know, but then you realize you had 4 bites or something, and your fork would tell you.
I guess there's a fork for that now, thanks to
There's
art.
a fork for that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a link, but it's out there, yeah. Or maybe it's some diet Kickstarter project, but
Yeah.
I've posted a link to Happy Fork. It's $99. That's quite a pricey fork.
no, that's a steal. It's
Well, then for a fork, that price has to be like a laser pointer. It has to start my car. Probably be like an extension to my Apple TV, so I can basically like remote control it as well.
well,
Yeah, that's the trick. Is it HomeKit enabled?
Yes.
Yeah,
And can
you
I
need-
actually recognize my voice?
You
Right?
need
Take your
some
mouth
fork
full.
superpowers with that. Some fork
Disregard the
superpowers.
spoon of chocolate I'm putting in my mouth. Fork. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey Siri, look away.
Disregard the weight of the spoon. It is inaccurate. Recalibrate. Beep, 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 and you eat real fast. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And so if this is, it was Natasha who made this, correct?
Yeah.
I had a clue the thing was like muddles, but that was definitely a unique way of putting it. We're going to go ahead and go to the last one here, which is Tongue Lab, a creative food practice, mindful action building resiliently for you and the world. Wow, even as a pitch in there, as well as like as a title. So if you could, Natasha, I'm going to zoom in here on my side with the share. Go ahead and walk through the solution sketch and tell us what you see. And try not to guess who it is. We want the person who made this to feel anonymous, okay?
So, Tongue Lab is a is starting from this place of like, there's these unconscious food choices happening. And somebody has the thought of like, what about Tongue Lab, where we could have daily creative prompts? Your bin matcher food ambiguity, macro choices, your food map, food bank, yummy scribbles, napkin scratches are the types of prompts that might be offered in that daily creative prompt. And there would be like outside documentation and evidence created to help make better choices, as well as perhaps to connect with artists. Another part of Tongue Lab would be a lab space where you can join a food project. So it's sort of a creative art food practice where there's featured artists, maybe a gallery, there's projects, you can transform your food space, you can redesign takeout there, you could globally reconnect to food producers perhaps. There's site-specific eating, dirt is food. An economical pop-up space could be some of the outcomes that come out of the Tongue Lab. And another component would be lab events that people can attend. And so in the Tongue Lab, people can like seek and express and experience and make meaning and build resiliency and make changes happen. And in that would be events that people can go to, like food stamp foraging, alternative homemade products, flash picnics, tofu roasts, greens hunt, and farmhands day. So participating would change behavior, and the peer support would create long-term change. And all of these things that are happening in Tongue Lab would be tracked and would be progress markers, ways to sort of see over time how it goes. And then down at the bottom, the lab gallery gives some space for like scribbling of evidence or like sound sensations or like journey mapping. So this is happening in your lab gallery. And then in the project gallery, you have more of a social support network of friends and collaborators, project plans, maybe higher level visions of that, impact evidence, maybe even like databases of learnings, and lab events. So there'd be like evidence-based events, collaborative friends labs happening, and it would be a sort of co-working or like co-inspiration experience. And so you can see there's two faces on either side, and they're looking and connecting back and forth. So there's that like sort of synchronicity communal aspect. And there would be, you know, for each event, there'd be an attention set, a calendar, there'd be a location named, there'd be outcomes and findings from that and actions for the next steps. And as well, those events would be reflections on the mindful actions taken. So yeah, it'd be like a very super comprehensive approach to community and to eating, solving for the unconscious food choices that were named at the very top near daily creative prompts. Yeah, I think that's what's represented, and then there's some comments and stuff. Robert, do you want to go over that?
No, normally I don't cover the comments themselves. They tend to be self-explanatory.
Sure.
I just leave it open-ended for everyone but the author to kind of chime in, maybe go over some things in particular that that you went over that they want to emphasize, maybe something that they want to comment on that they left an emoji next to. So does anybody else on the call, minus the author, want to go over anything that Natasha touched upon or something you'd like to emphasize? I will say that, interestingly enough, from an art perspective, you have the big face up here where it says track progress. And I know there's two faces on either side, but when you look at it abstractly, it actually looks like a lumpy throat of the person at the very top. So literally it's like your lab gallery track, your lab project gallery. These are all the content. It's all content that's placed within something that looks like a throat of the head at the top. So I just thought
That's what I thought at first too.
Yeah. So I took a closer look at the faces. So Any comments from the group in terms of what Natasha went over and what you see? If we don't have any, then it's up to the person that created the solution sketch. And if they could you please speak up and let us know how Natasha did with her explanation, and if there's anything particular that you'd like to point out.
Of course, you know it's me.
No, and I completely did not know. That's a total shock. I really thought it was Jeff all the way. He loves getting into detail like this.
I want to thank you for having this sprint, because this idea has been growing in me, and it allowed me to just kind of like throw it all out there. Really, a lot of pieces came together when I was able to get this out. Natasha, you did a great job. The only thing is with the lab events, that's also evidence you're collecting. So you can have your, what did you learn or find at the event? Who did you meet? Were there connections you made? So kind of like a way to track or like a CRM, and any findings that you want to bring into your whole piece. And it's connected to there's connected to a lot of things, but that's it. Thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity.
It's really cool. I like that. I like at least the drawing aspect of it. Whenever I have people that know how to kind of like draw and animate, it's nice. Now, that's not to say I'm not disparaging anyone that just came into this conversation with someone else telling them they couldn't draw. It's just that everyone has a different approach to communicating. So I don't want to discount what other people have done here. I usually admire sometimes the way people convey their ideas through drawing. Okay, so we've gone through, I believe, all the solution sketches everyone has kind of submitted. You have the questions that were answered by the authors as well as the group, and all the yellow comment cards. You also have particular areas of these solution sketches that have pink emojis next to them, which connotate either interest or ideas, something that's very interesting about solution sketch itself. So what I'm going to do is get rid of some of the clutter over here and get rid of these two ones that aren't being used. I'm going to grab the 4 that are over here on the left and scoosh these over just a tad. So for an overview, since we're only meeting for another hour, I'll go over the summary of events. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to vote on a solution sketch to kind of move forward into prototyping. After we do that vote, I'm going to explain what the storyboarding is over here and how it's done. And we'll do that kind of offline while I do my daily ritual of going to get my son from the school. I anticipate that'll be around 20 minutes from now. That'll give you some time to do the storyboarding part of this. At 1:45 or right before that, say around 3:10, 3:15, we'll review each of these paths and kind of vote on which one we want to move forward with, and potentially take another component of another person's path and make that part of the story flow. We'll figure out where on these screens that story flow exists, so going from one step to the next. And then by 3:30, we should at least have the beginnings of a storyboard that we can work offline with together. And you can follow the instructions that are up here and the directions that are part of the storyboard. But essentially at this point, we'll be starting to work on building out a prototype. I'll probably give some recommendations in terms of offline activities you can do to clarify everyone's role when it comes to the storyboard and what kind of expectations you like to set with each other around the completion of this. That'll be all done in Basecamp. So you'll see those messages come through a little later. Does anyone have any questions about that proposed way that we're going to spend our next hour of time?
Will there be a break in there somewhere?
Yeah, we're going to take a break right at around 2:45, 2:50 my time. So in about 15, 20 minutes. And we're going to use that break we'll probably stop at 2:45, 2:50 and then start up at around 3:10, 3:15. And between 2:45 and 3:15 is the story flow, where you're going to put in your own story flow based on the solution sketch that we vote on right now. And we'll start on that process before we break so that you kind of know what to do. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this little thing up here as a straw poll vote. So I'm going to bring it down so it's in within eye shot of the solution sketches. So what you are going to do, and this is something where I'll give this particular group a choice. Now you could, this is option 1, take the straw poll votes over here, just basically one of the blue dots. Don't put your name on it or anything. And what you're going to do is you're going to vote on one thing out of the 6 solution sketches you see here that you want to move forward into prototyping. That thing could be an entire solution sketch. It can be just one component of a particular solution sketch. Whatever you'd like to make sure that it's in the prototype, you want to put this blue dot there. And it's only one blue dot per person. So it's up to you whether or not you want to choose a whole solution sketch, or if you don't like parts of the solution sketch, but you're really intrigued by, say, something here, you put your blue dot there. Since I think we have on the call, and I'll just double check, we have about 7 people. I'll assume there's going to be about 7 dots that are going to kind of go into this. But if not, that's okay. I think that's everyone, excluding me. But I'll assume that there's 7 votes. Once we do that, it'll probably be apparent on which direction we should go in for a solution sketch, but if not, we can go the one step further with the decider vote. So option 1 is seeing where people put their dots. Option 2 is where we do a silent vote using the voting mechanism within Mural. However, I would need to do a little bit of maintenance and put voting spaces next to each of the solution sketches, and then a dot next to on the solution sketch itself, meaning that your vote corresponds to something that you see in the solution sketch, but you're not going to be specific. And you can do that after the votes are tallied. So the advantage of doing this one is that no one's going to be influenced by each other's voting, whereas the first one, it's fairly quick, and you people just drag the dot where they want to put their vote. So if you could, I'd like you to go into Zoom chat, and basically go into the chat mechanism and either to put 1 or 2. 1 would be where everyone sees where the blue dot vote goes based on where you're going to vote on the solution sketch or parts of the solution sketch. Or 2, if you want to go a silent route and basically make sure that your vote is anonymous and you can vote on either a solution sketch or components of the solution itself. So go ahead and go into Zoom chat and let me know. I'll give about 15 more seconds for a reaction. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it looks like we're all kind of in place. It was a close, so by a 4-3 vote, it looks like we're going to just basically put the blue dots on where we want to put them, rather than go through a silent vote. So the way to do that is just take a blue dot over here on the right-hand side, grab it, and decide whether or not you want to put it on the solution sketch. So you put it right to the left of the title.
Sorry, Robert. Can I put a suggestion in the chat? What we can do is like think for yourself. What is my where I'm going to vote, and then we count down. Say, do we have it all? Yes, we have it. And 3, 2, 1, place your votes, and then we have the speed, but we don't influence each other.
Okay, let's do that. Again, using Zoom chat, go ahead and type in ready when you're ready to vote. When we have 7 people say ready, then I'll know that we're kind of good to rock and roll and put the blue dots on the count of 3. So don't put your blue dot anywhere yet. Just make sure that in Zoom chat, you go in and you type in the word ready, and they'll let me know that you're all set to vote. So far I see Nora's ready. Susanna's as well. Marguerite, Daniel is. So we got 4. Tasha, Jeff. Okay, everyone's ready. So grab your blue dot, and on the count of 3, I would like you to put your blue dot where you want to put it. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Drop your dot where you want it. It's okay if it goes behind. Oh, kind of. Just put it in front. If it drops, then you'll have to fish for it. Hang on. I'll help you with it. I saw a bunch
Oh,
of them
no.
drop over there, so there you go. Send things to back. Does anyone else have their dot trapped somewhere?
I do.
Where are you trapped?
I am on Tongue Lab events. Oh, there it is.
Okay, yeah, I just sent it back. Yeah,
Thank
hang on.
you.
That was my fault for not for not making sure that all of them were for like on the fronts. Okay, so we have let's go over the votes real fast. So there's we have a vote for Eatspiration. We have a vote for Simple Chef Mindful Nourishment app. And we have a vote for Muddles of Mindful Nourishment. And interestingly enough, we have 3 votes for the elements that are within Tongue Lab. So it's like there's a bunch of stuff in here. And we also have a vote down here for the Mind Body Nourishment one. Now, before we kind of levy a decision, I want to leave it open for 5 minutes, just to basically for people to explain why they voted the way they did. And then we're going to do a decider vote as a group. So I'll explain how that basically works. So for the person that voted for Simple Chef Mindful Nourishment app, what was your rationale behind why you chose this one?
That's me. So I basically just wanted to make sure that we can do this in the time we have for prototyping. So I was thinking that that could be the easiest one, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I also like some parts of the Tongue Lab, but as a whole, I prefer the Simple Chef Mindfuls.
Okay. Cool. Who voted for Eatspiration?
That was me. Ooh,
All
I'm
right.
freezing.
So please, if
Um,
you can.
It was a similar, I felt like it was something that was a manageable chunk, a little bit more straightforward, that we could brainstorm some prototype ideas around. So I was kind of going for doable also,
Okay.
and had some interesting, aspects to it. It had some actually very similar things to the Simple Chef one that I did, but I didn't want to vote for myself. So
Okay. How about Muddles of Mindful Nourishment?
I cast my vote there.
Okay. Why did you put that one up there?
Yeah, I just have the one on top, right? But I had that one because I really like that it's very simple. It's like offline, not on an app, kind of going against the idea of the mindfulness eating, and it's in the moment. And I think if you need change in a mindful eating, you're there in the moment. So I think that's the best way of doing it, like because it's something you really have at hand while eating. So
Okay.
that's why. So yeah, I think it's a really strong solution.
Okay. Who was the person who put the dot on the Muddles sketch that corresponds to each card has a theme, perhaps an image and some reflective or proactive content? Who put their dot there?
Me, Marguerite, I had a similar thought to art that wait, did I say that name right? Your name right? Sorry, if I didn't. That I just like the in the moment physicalness of it, and maybe practicing small exercises that can shift your behavior.
Okay. Great. And we got 3 for Tongue Lab. There's one not right next to Daily Creative Prompts. Who was the person that voted on that one?
That was me. I was also pulled because I saw solutions that were much simpler to prototype. But I was thinking that maybe a piece of this could be prototyped. And there were things like Natasha's cards that could be a daily prompt or could be an event. So I was thinking there might be a way to just take a small piece of the Tongue Lab and prototype something to, and incorporate some other pieces of ideas.
Okay. We've got 2 people on the lab events attend around that area. So either one of the people that voted in that spot, tell me what you were thinking when you placed your vote there.
I'll jump in. I placed my vote like right over top of the events, just because I felt like they might be easy to like test engagement maybe. Also, like the tofu roast sounded really awesome and fun to me, so I was like, oh, I'd go to that. That sounds great. So a little, you know, self-referential there, but I liked the idea of like the lab events supporting, being like a behavioral change and being peer supported. So kind of thinking about like how you electing to go to an event marks a decision to change your approach to food, and then you get there and there's like tons of people who are also stoked to just to be supportive. So that just felt like a really great way to bring together, you know, mindfulness and nourishment. And also like being an event, it's very like kind of time boxed and succinct and precise in some ways, even though it's not a digital product and like more difficult in other ways. So.
Got it. Okay. And who was the other dot? Who did the other dot vote belong to?
That was me. So my thinking behind that was I really liked that it was like this an offline / physical thing that you could do. And then I kind of thought about the how might we's that we placed in yesterday's session about the main target. So you can almost see how that, in my mind, the how might we's become the direction for those courses and those workshops and those lab events. And you can literally answer those questions in attending.
Can you remind me of the how might we's like?
So how might we tell the story of food? How might we think about nutrition beyond calorie fuel? And how might we see time and mindfulness to be not in opposition?
Yeah, great thinking.
Okay.
There's 3 events.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a
So,
quarter planned.
yeah.
Well, it could also be, you know, like in terms of a, you know, product rollout, being able to, like what Natasha was saying, do some testing of the concept and the idea.
And maybe the take home in the goodie bag is a set of cards.
Could be. Okay, so the final step in this, now that we've kind of understood the reasoning behind our votes, we're going to basically use the decider vote and use a silent vote for this, but only vote on the blue dots. You're going to get 2 votes each. You can vote on anything you like in this interface. You can even stack your votes if you want to. But what we're going to do is, after hearing everyone's perspective on why they voted, kind of reaffirm either their original choice and add something else to the mix in terms of what they've heard from other people. And this is a way of seeing if there's still a real interest in going for one way or another, or if we're kind of coalescing around 2 or 3 different possibilities. So what you're going to be doing again is just voting, placing your votes on the blue dots that have borders on them. So to review, there's one on Simple Chef Mindful Nourishment app, and I'll summon everyone just in case. There's Simple Recipes over here. There's Models of Mindful Nourishment in the on the concept sketch or the solution sketch. And then we have 4 votes that are on the solution sketches themselves, 1 in Models of Mindful Nourishment and 3 in Tongue Lab. So again, you'll have 2 votes in this silent voting session. Just vote on the blue dots. And from there, I think we'll be in a good place to move fairly quickly into storyboarding. And then I can leave you with some direction before I head out to go pick up you know who. So 2 votes, just vote on the blue dots, and go ahead and select them where you'd like to put them. So ironically, we're back to silent voting. Even though we had the choice originally, we decided to go in that route anyway. And just for also for notice, there are some high winds here in Dallas, and they're kind of hitting the house pretty hard. I don't think I'll lose my internet connection, but just in case I go dark, that's probably the reason why. Art, are you all set with your votes, or are you still thinking?
I'm thinking, but I'll think faster.
Yeah, just making sure. Wait a minute. Okay, so I think we're all set. Let's close down the votes and let's see how everything vetted out. And the blue dots are going to tell you much, but we do have a couple ones that seem to be standing out. If we look at the sheer number of votes, it's interesting because it looks like the votes that won were actually the components within the solution sketches themselves. So the one with 4 votes was the one over here on lab events attend. And then we have another one for the one that was inside the models of mindful nourishment. And if I'm looking at the votes correctly, it looks like out of the solution sketch votes, models of mindful nourishment seem to come up on top with 2 votes. So the way I'm interpreting this is that models of mindful nourishment may seem like the theme for the overall path, but the 2 votes that are here would correspond to something that's a component within the solution sketch, or so components within the solution sketch that should be transferred over to the storyboard. So maybe you have muddles as a theme, but using the components of both of these, where these dot votes are, to kind of bring in those components into the overall experience flow. Does anyone have a different interpretation of that?
I would like to ask, how do I think of muddles as a larger theme?
So when you're thinking about the experience path, the way that Marguerite kind of explained it is that there was a certain flow in terms of mindful tableware, but this particular aspect was each card has a theme, perhaps an image and some reflective or proactive content. So clearly the thing that people definitely want to see in the storyboard is this card, not necessarily this particular theme per se, but the card that corresponds to this. They also want to see the components here in regards to what's in this particular sketch. What I mean by this models of mindful nourishment is that this may play a clue as to the scene that you're going to start with as the person interacting with these particular components. So maybe a person that's sitting at the table about to have their meal, and kind of being in that state as your first step, and as part of the experience that you're describing. But then it goes into these components as part of the experience when you write out your story flow. Does that make sense? So this provides a story, or provides the backdrop. The solution votes, the straw poll, my mouth's not working. The components that are voted here constitute the detail around what that person is doing in that scene, or the different features or aspects they are working within. Does that make better sense? One's more general, the other one's a little bit more detailed. Is that cleared up for you, Nora, or is that still confusing?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm almost due. Let's really fast go over to this part over here with the story flow. Rather than dragging components, I'm going to keep everything kind of intact over on the solution sketches. Now, this is something you can be able to do in the next, like, say, 20 minutes or so. So you can go take a break, go get something to eat, maybe go to the bathroom, what have you. We'll plan on meeting at the quarter of the hour next time, and Jeff has to leave for an appointment, so he's going to be leaving us soon. But what you want to do is take a look at the 3 things that the top voted 3 things we just went over, and you're going to start thinking about how this storyboard is going to work. The first action step, basically you can take it from the map, but you can also create, I've found that it's better if you, well, you could take it from the map. So if you talk about the map itself, the original target, it was learning how slowing down and making mindful, intentional choices begins with planning for meals. So the main target may suggest that we're talking about the first step being something around planning a meal, or sitting down to do so as part of the first action step. Your disposition may differ, but this is basically what the map is suggesting that you start with as a base point. And then from there, you just take from the solution sketches you just voted on to fill in the remainder of the steps, as well as the last action. Now, the last action that you have may seek to answer the sprint questions, which I'll copy down in a second in this spot, but this is optional. You don't have to necessarily have them answer the sprint questions, but they should kind of lead you in that particular direction. And again, I'll go and get them real fast and bring them back over here. Put them right on top. Okay. So to recap, you're going to take the first action step from the map, infer from it, this one right here that we had put on the map yesterday, and consider the supporting target as well. Maybe it conveys the empathy or the feeling of the moment. Start with that in your first action step. Fill in the remainder of the steps based on what you just voted in the solution sketches here. I would restrict yourself as to not invent anything new, but literally go by what has been voted on these two particular spots. Perhaps also you can pick from daily creative prompts if you want to. Everyone's going to have a different feel for this. And these are all going to be very, very similar, which is to be expected. And then your last action, as people drive through this experience, see if it kind of can answer any of these questions after they've gone through this experience. If after going through your story flow, does the actor you're talking about measure nutrition in a simple way? Can they define what nutrition means to them? Will they think twice about fast food culture? Whatever you think would kind of align with that last action step, you can do so. Otherwise, you don't have to align with this and just basically put in the last action step you think would be logical after writing out steps 2 through 6. You'll have from now until about 3:15 to kind of do your own story flow. Does anyone have any questions before we break? And I will reiterate, there are no right or wrong answers with this. This is basically your interpretation of the map origin, the steps that would take from the solution sketches, and what the last action step would be that would hopefully point towards the sprint questions. Okay? So go ahead and give it a go. And it looks like Daniel's also going to be leaving. So we got by 4 or 5 people doing solution scout or story flows at this point. So again, go take a break, do what you need to do, come on back. We'll meet up again at 1:45 of the hour and spend the last 15 minutes looking over the story flows that people have put on, and we'll make next steps for day 4. Okay? And I am going to shut off my audio and video on my end so you don't get any interference when I'm not here. If you need to get a hold of me, I'm on my phone. Go ahead and just message me on Slack, and I should be paying attention, and we should be good to go. All right? Good luck to you all, and let's see what cue you come up with. And bye, Daniel, and bye, Jeff. I know you have to go. We'll talk to you all.
Bye, team. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Okay. All right, everybody. Just hanging out. My child is throwing a temper tantrum downstairs, so he may come up here and kind of display all his anger. But if it does, then I'll go silent, so you don't have to deal with that. So where are we at? So I'm gonna do a little bit of maneuvering. Looks like step 8 was done down here. I'm gonna move that up to step 3. Kind of switch those out a little bit so we're all looking at the same one, same batches.
While Robert's doing that, I had a kind of a question to myself and wondered what other people in the group thought. I'm wondering if this is like a very, like, is this a very West Coast thing, or is this like, I don't know, like, is mindfulness something that people even talk about in other places, or is it very like, I don't know. Does anyone know what I'm asking?
I
I don't
think I do. You know, I think some understanding that it's there's like kind of larger meditation practice that happens in all faiths, but I think there's probably there's a lot of myths out there, and I think, you know, it's like how some people think yoga is like some kind of devil worship or something, you know, like misconceptions about it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like misconceptions about it, or like, you know, if we go to test this with users, which is of course where my mind starts to go right now, it's like as we move towards the solution, I'm thinking, do we have to have users who know what mindfulness is? Or, you know, I mean, is this even on the radar for people?
I wondered similar thing, like, do we even say the word mindful? Use that term. Sorry, I missed your initial question. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just worthwhile to consider that for sure.
I would just add, I think it's definitely worth considering and being aware of. And I'm in North Carolina, so, you know, south-ish, east, south. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of awareness. Like I said, at the gym, they were posting mindfulness and meditation. So for people who are into fitness and well-being, so we might have to have some screening criteria to screen people in. We don't want to talk to, you know, like Joe, you know, whatever in the, you know, Midwest, maybe.
Yeah.
But so there's some criteria in terms of people who are already would be in our target definition that we'd want to talk to. But I think it's pretty broad ranging. I mean, look at the number of different lightning demos that we came up with. I mean, and Headspace, those things are huge. So people are, there's lots of people around the world who are already in this space. So I don't know that's only West Coast kind of target focused.
Okay, good. Because I feel like a fish in a bowl or like a frog in a pot, you know. I always
don't know what's
question, like, what is my own biases, my own perspective? Sure. Why do I even, you know?
Well, I think we do that in defining who our target user is, right? So when we want to do user testing, it's all around screening. So
well, exactly. I had a conversation with another teammate from my sprint last or 2 weeks ago about like personas and that sort of thing, and how we don't really do that in the sprint. So and how that might change our solutions and that type of stuff. So I've just been thinking about that and wondered what you guys thought. Thanks.
I would agree with Marguerite. You know, mindfulness might not even be the term, you know, unless it really wants to be connected to that. You know, what is the other outcomes of the muddle cards? You know, unmuddling. What's the opposite of muddle?
Yeah.
I think it could be the name of the product altogether. Just call it muddle.
No. People's curiosity.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
I mean, we do have, we didn't go talk about it as persona, but we talked about when we did the kind of journey map, you know, and we defined the problem. It was time-starved, busy people who kind of want to do more with eating better and looking for nourishment solutions. So it's not like I just need to be faster and feed my kid, you know. So we have a little bit of that built into the way we define those user journeys, and we can refine that as we build the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's sort of like maybe link back to that when we get there, because that's a good point. We have some that's ready, and we could definitely refine it and fine tune it.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start with we'll start going through the story flows. We'll start with row 1. Who was the person that wrote the muddle card experience?
I did.
So go ahead and kind of start from the left and work your way over to the right as you're kind of explaining the flow.
So thinking of this, the base theme of the muddle card and connecting it with the tongue lab, that there would be this delicious teaser ad for the tongue lab, but it's, you know, advertising the muddle card. So something that you could really even just use that as a test to see if people would be interested in the concepts. People would, you know, then sign up for the events, they'd invite their friends, there'd be food and drink. It would be a food and drink sponsored event, of course. And people would have a good experience. I didn't tie this back on into nutrition, but I think the muddle cards tie it into nutrition. And it's very much not fast food. So, and depending on who your food sponsors are, they could be tied into those pieces as well in terms of a theme that flows out.
And which of the sprint questions do you think that this kind of touches on or aligns with, if any?
Can we measure nutrition in a simple way, you know, by using the cards, watching, you know, more qualitative feedback of being able to watch how people are using the cards, see what kind of conversation is generated, how many friendships are created from it, and, you know, people buying the packs and then having a vehicle for them to express, you know, through the tongue lab, how they might be experimenting them and using them in other ways and giving them another life.
Okay.
That is related to their improving their nutrition.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much, Nora. For path number 2, we have, starts out with learns how to eat, mindful starts at preparation. Who is the author of this flow?
Yeah, that's me. I just took the card from the map as you requested. I think a way to test it is, well, physically invite people to a room with a setting. You have a table, like with a bowl of peanuts, and ask them questions about who they are, or I mean something not really related, and kind of see if they eat from the bowl, and then go into that, ask how many peanuts they ate, and of course they don't know. And then if you introduce the model cards, you introduce the bowl of peanuts again, and then see if the view on food has changed.
Okay. And which of these sprint questions do you think it answers or aligns with?
Well, really, just the make the fast food culture go away. And also, it would like answer the question, would the concept work? I think that's...
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you, Art. Let's head into flow number 3 with muddle card deck is on the dinner table as part of a mindful eating plan. Who was the author of that one?
That's mine. And just to note on Art's flow, as I was making this, I was eating olives, and I looked down just as I just as we came back, and I ate like 12 olives, and they were all delicious, but I cannot say it was mindful. I was really just eating them. So for better or worse, the muddle card deck is on the dinner table as part of mindful eating plan. So I kind of started there because I felt like, you know, the target is somebody who's, you know, learning to have more mindfulness in their eating, or how does it say? Intentional choices begin with planning. So there's already this element of planning that's sort of the base to build on. So then I thought, okay, they're going to open the deck and pull out a card when they sit down to eat. They share with everyone at the table. As they're cleaning up the dishes and discussing tomorrow's food plan, like what's for lunch tomorrow, that type of stuff. Someone notices the muddled card URL to a site, like on the back of the card deck as they're wiping the table off. They pick up the card deck and, you know, are putting it away, putting it next to the salt and pepper shaker or whatever, and says like, oh, there's a website. And the site has events, which are hosted at Tongue Lab. And so seeing that there's a whole online, you know, or seeing that there's like a bridge to another community, people sign up for the event, begin to contribute to the community. And the result is that Tongue Lab learnings dissolve the fast food culture in favor of a nourishment culture.
Okay. So if I heard you correctly, it sounds like it answers at least 2 of the sprint questions, correct?
I only thought it would answer the one about the can we make fast food culture go away? Which one were you thinking as well?
Basically the can we measure nutrition, but
yeah, I mean, I suppose my mind went very analytical there with like measurements and scientific, like how do you measure nutrition? But I also can understand like how that would apply.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Natasha. Path number 4, we have seeking more mindful eating opportunities. Who, pray tell, is the person that did this path?
That is mine. In path 4, our busy hero or heroine is seeking more mindful eating opportunities. They are at that point where they've learned that that's important. They discover and they use the Muddle Mindful cards for daily inspiration at mealtime. Within the pack of cards, there's a card that calls, or, you know, a couple places, card with a link to join live events. So they go to the link, they find out about the schedule of upcoming events. They say, wow, and sign up for a lab event. They attend that in person and immerse into the mindful food experience on whatever version of the lab event is that they were interested in signing up for. Through that, they build community and their personal network, which continues to support their new mindful eating behaviors and therefore shifts their focus to nourishing versus counting calories and knowing the story behind their food. So I was going back to some of our how might we's actually to connect that. So not specifically the sprint questions, but I think it's around shifting probably the getting rid of fast food culture and kind of being aware of nutrition for them, nutrition, nourishment.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Suzanne. And Susanna. And I think I already know who's the last one is, but I believe it's Marguerite, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So this person sees an ad about learning how to eat mindfully, and they joined the mindful eating community mentioned in the ad. They download or order tools recommended by the community. They use their mindful eating utensils. They use the cards to practice mindful eating at meals. And they sign up for the lab events recommended by the community and then report back to the community on progress. When I was thinking about this and the questions, I didn't specify it, but I imagine like the events and the cards would tie directly to the sprint questions.
Oh. So you said
the event, if we used an example event.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we have a few minutes left before we have to break. I'm going to move these sprint questions back up to the top. And what we're going to be doing is everyone gets 2 votes. You're going to vote on one particular story flow. So you're going to put your vote on the number over here on the left-hand side. You can vote, you can place 2 votes on one story flow, or you can break them up into 2 different ones. So I'll go ahead and start a voting session. And this is for the story flow. 2 votes. Go ahead and place them on the flow that you would like to adopt to go into the storyboard that you would basically work off of to prototype. So go ahead and click on a number that corresponds to the flow that you want to prototype against, and shift click if you want to change your mind and move it to something else. Okay. Go ahead and end the voting session. Let's see how things vetted out. And it looks like number 2 is the one that is our flow. And that corresponds to this one, learns how to eat mindful, starts a preparation. And then the last part is ask how the view on food changes. Now, the one last thing we'll do really fast, and this is kind of a hack in a way. So normally you would have like a cross vote to see which one you would like to add. So there's 7 steps here. If there's a particular part of a flow that you would especially like to be able to put in as part of the experience, what would it be? By the way, I just noticed somebody had kind of put their vote on the gold cards rather than the actual voting.
I did.
Okay, so was that meant to go on the number 5
It
then?
was number 5 and number 1.
Okay. All right, so then this one's actually 3 votes. So let's do just a quick reset. Why don't we go ahead and instead of doing some discussion between these 2, just a quick snap vote. Go ahead and put your mouse over either 2 or 5, and let's see where people kind of are deciding between those 2 flows in terms of what they'd like to bring forward into the prototype. So again, just move them in a circle kind of around the number and just see how many people are going to gravitate towards either 2 or 5 if you had to make a decision. So far, I see Susanna over at number 5. I see Art number 2. I think more they're kind of reading through and making a decision one way or another. So we got 1 and 1, waiting for Marguerite and Natasha and some other folks to kind of weigh in as well. Let's see. Marguerite's at 2. I think Natasha had a hard stop at the half hour, so she had to leave. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll go with 2 then, as we had in there before. And really fast, well, actually, I can save this for the next step. So this is the flow that you're going to be putting into these next action steps. A very easy way to do it is essentially take the 7 that are here, and I'm going to copy them, bring them over to this section here. And you're basically going to place the first step over here, where this is supposed to be, and the last step here, right there. And then I'm just going to put in progression these steps for each of these particular screens so that they can be moved around if you want to. It's up to you. But you will have an extra screen to kind of work with at the end of this. If you want to pull a screen from another flow that was over in this section here, like the one that was voted for 3 votes, if you think it would enhance this particular flow, you could do so. But the conversation that we're going to have offline is who is going to be in the camp of working on the prototype and who is going to be in the camp of working on testing, meaning the test scripts, as well as finding people to test your prototype for. I'll go ahead and do that within Basecamp and kind of work that out. You'll probably see it this evening after I take care of my temper tantrum son downstairs. And that'll probably be something you probably see from me coming up. Anyone have any quick questions before we break?
So it sounds like, it looks like this is the user test right here.
This is the flow. The user test can be written in such a way so that you're clarifying what people are understanding about what you create on the design side. And then towards the end of the Q&A session or the interview, you're going to touch upon different things such as the sprint questions, ask them about the challenge. And again, I'll write this out so that you can kind of see what the examples are. And then you as a group can modify them if you need to. Plus,
So
you've had
we would be, the prototype would be the muddle cards. The muddle cards need to be prototyped, and the learn how to eat, what they're gonna, how they're gonna learn about mindful eating preparation. Those are
let's
the
see.
two pieces that seem kind of.
Yeah, I'm a little confused as well. I mean, I appreciate that as a way to help people learn, but I don't understand what it is we're designing then, because that's a very specific experience.
So it sounds like you are designing an experience, and it's less about like an interface app. Because if I read into this,
Cards.
you're talking, this first step seems like it's a theme for everything else. And you invite people into a room with a bowl of peanuts on the table. So you're telling a story. And then how you would actually prototype, ask random questions, participant eats from the bowl, and ask about how many peanuts they ate. It could be where you're basically describing a scenario, and then the muddle cards are where the majority of your testing happens. But the muddle card itself may be just one of them that corresponds to something about mindful eating around the peanuts. That may be something where you have to discuss it as a group. But if, I'll say this, if after discussing it in Basecamp a bit, or if you decide to kind of get together before tomorrow on WhatsApp or whatever, if you want to have a discussion, if you find that this is more problematic to prototype, you do have Flow 5. And if you look at that real fast, that is sees an ad about how to eat mindfully, joins a community, downloads tools, uses mindful eating utensils, uses cards. So there's more artifacts here that you may not have to design in detail, but you can introduce them as a way of showing the concept of mindful eating. And part of it is going to have to be a creative way of kind of putting it in a presentation type prototype. But it's probably a discussion you'll have to have with your team, is how you would actually prototype this flow and experience. And if this is seemingly hard to do, where you can't really kind of bridge it into a prototype, then you have your fallback on lane 5.
Yeah, because I think why peanuts, a lot of people are allergic to them, and the learns how to eat mindful starts at preparation. We don't have anything designed for that already. Like, we have the muddle cards, but we don't have that first action step.
So here's just an idea. What if you, and I want to put a lot of work on your plate, Nora, but what if you were actually telling a story, like an actual storybook? So that basically what you're doing is you're describing characters that are walking through this experience. The muddle cards are something that basically would be like an artifact that would derive or tie into that story. And that basically explains the value of what the cards are and what they're supposed to convey.
That's a possibility. Well, usually I tested like funkier stuff than this. But what's the setting for testing? Because that matters. That makes all the difference.
The most of the time with this process, it involves a one-on-one interview with someone else, and you're giving them something to experience, whether that is a presentation deck, a Figma app, or a physical object, whatever you want as a group want to kind of construct. I know that Team Fuzzy Bunny decided to do a presentation because of the sophistication of what they were thinking about designing, but it's up to you as a group in which way you want to do this.
Is it possible to have, let's say, real face-to-face meetings, maybe, or do we want to recruit online, to interview online as well?
No, you can do it face-to-face if you want to.
I think there's also a question about who's leading design, how much time as a team do we want to take on designing and prototyping this and testing, because are you willing to go beyond this week and really stay cohesive and move forward? Because I know with the other teams, it was really hard to find user testers in such short notice. And we're kind of straggling now that we don't have a focus. And for us in the US, of big holidays coming up.
How about food? And stuffing
About
your
food, yes.
Face.
Well, the easiest thing you can do
Just stick with your relatives.
yes,
Yeah.
The easiest thing you can do between now and tomorrow, if you wanted to do it that way, is basically put this in presentation form. You are basically describing a story. You probably don't even get into detail too much about model cards, but you basically explain the concept. And what you're doing is you're having a conversation about that concept, more so than anything in detail that you do. You're just making the presentation as believable as possible. And then for the people that you're going to be recruiting for this, it would likely depend on, I mean, the fallback on short notice is friends and family, especially if we're taking art suggestion of having a conversation with someone you know that doesn't have context for this, but is somebody that you think would be open to a conversation about mindful eating. Those are the two quickest paths to kind of getting what you're looking for.
Yeah. And if we all say we have maybe one, maybe two people we can interview, I mean, Nora, you even pull out Buddhist monks out your sleeve. So I mean, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah. And to reiterate, tomorrow is just a check-in on Thursday. So it's to see where we are, what needs to be done, who can help with what. And then the idea being is that between then and say like Friday or even Monday, you want to take the weekend for some extra time.
Yeah.
You go through that process, and then Monday with the holidays coming up, that would probably be the proper time for any kind of retrospective you want to do.
Cool. It's yeah. I actually I see this work, but it's also like really the kind of, I do this a lot. This kind of interviews, like really have physical prototypes, putting it in people's hands in my sprint. So I don't know if you're on a schedule. Otherwise, we can maybe talk a bit. I'm good with that.
I can stay and talk a bit.
I
Would you
see.
just stop?
I have to run, so I'll catch up with y'all on Basecamp and see what you've come up with.
Mhm.
Cool.
We'll
Bye.
stop the live stream.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Just give me a minute. Let's see here. Whoa.